Hello, welcome to more yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's always disconcerting when you cross your legs to sit down for yoga and you see these bright red spots on your feet. You're like, I cut myself. What's going on? And you just remember that you cooked beets the night before. So that's, I feel a little thrown off here. Um, Enough about me. How are you doing? I hope that you're doing well, and if you aren't, I hope that you will feel better after this sort of 30-minute session together. I thought today that we would focus on the spine. So lots of movement through the spine, releasing muscles that aren't necessarily considered to be part of the spine, but can lead to tension in the spine, particularly in the low back, which I know for myself, being indoors more for the last 7 months, my low back feels a little bit tight. So we'll start cross-legged, or rather just start in a seated position. You could be cross-legged if you wish in this kind of yoga thing. You could have normal legs crossed. You could be up on your shins. You could have your legs outstretched. Whatever feels comfortable for you. I'm sitting up on a little chip foam block just to help release my hip flexors a little bit. One of those muscles that can bring tension to the low back. And then I invite you to close your eyes unless that triggers something or you feel your eyelids flickering, and just a single point of focus for your eyes on the wall or the floor in front of you. And then for a few breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. Continue breathing however you need to, whether it's in and out through your nose or your mouth. Notice how your breath is flowing. It might feel really open and spacious. Or maybe there are some sticky or choppy spots along the way. In which case you might gently try to lengthen through those parts of the breath just to smooth it out a little bit more. With every inhale, imagine your spine lengthening from your tailbone or your sit bones even all the way up to the crown of your head. With each exhale, a little softening of the front body so you're not rigid here. You will feel almost this wave-like motion through your spine with every breath. And then start to trace the curvature of your spine. The slight forward curve or anterior curve of the low back. And then the posterior curve of the thoracic spine where the ribs are. And then the anterior curve of the cervical spine or the throat and neck. And to cap it all off, the skull lifting just a little bit more. Gentle tuck of the chin without causing a double chin, just a little drop. Tracing the path of the spine, maybe envisioning every single vertebra. The ribs giving you a big hug from the back to the front. And then keeping your eyes closed as you inhale, start to lift your heart up to the sky, little loop of the shoulder blades toward each other. Exhale, round through your spine. Pull through the shoulder blades. Inhale to rock forward on the sit bones. Lift your heart and exhale around. So a few more of these very gentle, very undulating seated cat and cow movements. Now imagine your spine is like seaweed here, getting tossed through the waves. On your next inhale, come back to the tall seat. And on your exhale, start to draw circles with your torso down around to the left. Inhale, back up. Exhale down. So these could look however you want them to look. They could feel however you want them to feel. They could be sort of articulated barrel rolls through the chest. You might be flopping around with the head loose on the end of your neck. If you feel dizzy, you might keep your head still at the end of the neck and maybe a single point of focus for the eyes. Maybe your eyes are closed. A couple more of this first direction. And on your next exhale, gently switch directions. Last few breaths here. And on your next inhale, pause back at the top, tall seat. Ooh, gather your equilibrium if you're a bit dizzy. Ooh, like me. Inhale the arms high. As you exhale, start to reach the left arm forward, right arm behind you, coming into a twist. So that left hand might just gently rest on the right thigh. You could use the right fingertips to really press into the floor behind you to find more length through the spine. With every exhale, maybe you gently deepen the twist. And then inhale back through center. Exhale over to the opposite side. So twisting to the left, right arm forward, left arm behind you. Really press the left fingertips into the floor if they reach. And with each exhale, you might not twist deeper, but imagine that you are. And then inhale back to center. Shake out the arms a little bit. Bring your left fingertips to the floor. Inhale your right arm high. Exhale over to the left a little bit. Make sure the shoulder isn't creeping up to your ear. And then think of rooting that right sit bone down as you reach the right fingertips away, really puffing up into the space that you're creating on the right side of the body. This sort of lateral flexion isn't something we do that often outside of yoga. So it can sometimes feel really tight, particularly through the lower part of the torso, the obliques. And then inhale, back up, switch sides, right fingertips to the floor. Inhale the left arm high. Exhale over to the right. Really root the left sit bone down. And then reach the left fingertips away. You might even press into the right hand to really get more space into the left. That was sort of an aggressive sound, but that's what it feels like to me. That get a release. Last two breaths here. And then inhale, back up to center. Ooh, a little wiggle or shake, and let's get some more movement through the spine. So come to hands and knees. Setting up eventually with your knees underneath your hips. Your toes can be tucked or untucked, whatever feels better for you. Hands outer shoulder width apart or wider. A little draw of belly button to spine. And then inhale, lift your tailbone to the sky, hollow through the lower back, broaden through the collarbones. Exhale, round through your spine. Really give me your best Halloween cat. Inhale to dip the belly. Exhale, round. So a few more of these. Right? And now that our hips aren't pinned on the floor, we can get a lot more movement through the spine. And on your next inhale, come back to center. I'm going to turn to face you Now, and then with that neutral spine, start to bring your right shoulder toward your right hip. You might look over that right shoulder. So now lateral flexion and extension, and then back to the middle. Exhale to the left side. A little buoyancy in the elbows. And then back to center. And then right and left. So it's a little wag of the tail from side to side. The next time you come to the right, pause there. And then start to dip the belly coming into center, into cow. And then bring the left shoulder to your hip, that lateral flexion, and then press up to the sky for cat. And just keep making these big circles or barrel rolls through the torso. And you'll really notice, if you imagine your tailbone, it starts to kind of paint a circle on the back wall, or maybe an oval. And then come down into cat. We'll switch, or cow rather, we'll switch directions. So left, and then up, and then right, and down, and left, and up, and right. Once more. And then come back to center, little wiggle, little shake. And then bring your right hand in front of your left. Send your hips back. And a long stretch through the right side of the body. Send your right sit bone back a little bit more. You might stay up high. Depending on how that feels today, you might come down low. I think the last time I taught this, I said I like to stay up high for gravity. Today it feels better to come down low. And then inhale back to center, and then bring your left hand in front of your right. Send your hips back. Again, maybe you stay up high. Oh, that feels good on this side. I'm going to try coming down low. Doesn't feel as good. So, right, you never have to do the same variation from one side to the other, because we all have different muscular imbalances, tightnesses. And then inhale back to center. Whew, little wiggle or shake. Take your knees wide. Send your hips back toward your heels for child's pose. Now, if your hips are quite high up, you can always bring a pillow or a block in between your heels and your bum. And allow your forehead to come toward the earth. Maybe you prop fists underneath your forehead. Maybe it comfortably reaches the earth. If you prefer, you might bring the legs together underneath you so that you get more rounding through the low back here. You will have more compression through the belly there, so it becomes harder to breathe. And then slowly bring yourself back up to hands and knees, and then step to the top edge of your mat into a standing forward fold. Keep your knees bent, particularly if your low back is tight. Right? This will help release tension through the low back, whereas if the legs are straight, you can start to feel that tension in the low back. So bend the knees, right? And release. You're still getting a beautiful hamstring stretch, and tight hamstrings will contribute to low back tension or pain. So the idea of stretching the hamstrings is not to have long hamstrings. It's never the point to have the palms flat to the floor and the legs straight. We might never get there in our yoga practice. For me, it's all about releasing the tension in them so that the low back can start to release. Last couple breaths here. And then bring your fingertips to your shins or blocks or the earth. Inhale, a little partway lift. Belly button to spine. Pause here. You don't want to be rounded through the spine here. So that's why we're using our fingers to press into the legs to find length. Send your sit bones back. Beam your heart forward. There's a touch of cow here in the spine. Exhale, lower. Couple more. The other added benefit of this pose, of this partway lift, is that it helps equalize your blood pressure so that when you start to tuck the chin, bend the knees, and roll up, you won't faint. A couple loops of your shoulders, up, back, and down once you're all the way up. Standing, little wiggle or release. Whew. And bring your feet hip width apart. I feel like mine are a bit wide. That's fine though. I just don't want them touching. Little draw of belly button to spine. On your inhale, sit your hips down and back for chair pose. All right, so we're not up here on a bar stool. You want to find the seat of the chair, right? So hips back, tailbone down slightly to feel your belly button engaged toward your spine. When you look down, can you see all 10 toes, and even do you weight them? Now notice, are your knees hanging in toward each other? Probably, because that takes less work. But it's not as good for you. So send the knees out. Not so far wide, but just out toward the baby toe edge of the foot. And in cactus, inhale here. And then after all that, tuck your tailbone under, around through your spine. Give an imaginary friend a big bear hug. Inhale back up. Exhale around. 2 more. And then release into your standing forward fold. Little wiggle or sway, head heavy. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. On your inhale, step your right leg back and release your knee to the floor or to a chip foam block if you have it, or a pillow. I'm just going to get my props ready in case I need them. And then inhale, come up for a low lunge. So you're like, why do we always do a low lunge? And why do we always do sort of half splits? Well, because they're both really fantastic for releasing tension through the low back. So hug the legs toward each other, squeeze the bum, belly button to spine, shoulder blades on your back. Maintaining all that, shift your hips forward into that front knee. You could just rest your palms on the front side. Maybe you feel like you want to come down a little bit lower. Hands could be on blocks, or maybe you float your arms up to the sky. Right, whatever feels best for you today. But I really want you to squeeze the bum on the right side. So a couple more breaths here. And then on your exhale, shift your hips back, extending through the front leg for half splits. Hands might be on hips, or if you have a wall that you can hold on to for more stability, you might bring hands to blocks or to the floor. And then really wrap the right hip forward, draw the left hip back, little micro bend on that front knee, and then peel those toes back toward your face even more, because we might as well get a calf stretch while we're here. Can you imagine almost that you're trying to drag your front heel back toward you? Again, really active release here of the hamstrings. Last breath. And inhale, rock forward, step into your standing forward fold. Wiggle or sway. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. And then inhale, step your left leg back. I don't want to kick my bookshelf over. Release your back knee to the floor or to your chip foam block or whatever you're using. And then come up. Hug the legs toward each other, squeeze the bum, belly button to spine, shoulder blades on the back, shift into the front knee. Right, so as long as you can maintain the squeeze of the bum in particular on that back leg, then go wherever you want to go. I'm just going to stay in this sort of pulled back variation so that I can really concentrate on the active squeeze of the bum on the back leg. Last breath here. Good. Shift your hips back, extending through the front leg, half splits. Hands wherever they need to be, wherever works for you. Wrap the left hip forward. Draw the right hip back. A little micro bend on that front knee, and then peel the toes back toward your face even more. Maybe you feel that drag of the front heel back toward you. Your foot might not move, right? But you just kind of imagine that it could. Last breath here. Good. Inhale, step or ripple back forward, and then step to standing forward fold. Little wiggle or sway. And then heel and toe your feet apart, wider and on an angle. Your toes might be off the edge of your mat. And then as you exhale, sit into your squat. So you could be all the way down in Malasana if you wish. If that doesn't feel good for your body, then take the feet wider. You can rest your elbows on your knees or your thighs. You can also take a supported variation of Malasana if you wish. Same thing here. Why are we squatting, Emily? Well, squatting, being able to squat, not only super important functional movement, but it's really great for your spine. So feel a little hug of the legs toward each other, little activations. If you had to stand up, you could, right? You're not just dangling at the bottom. Can you even de-weight your big toes so that you're not rolling into the arches of your feet? Last couple breaths here. And then gently bring your hands behind you. Whew, sit down. Little windshield wiper of the knees. It's never a beautiful transition. Shake them out a little bit. Okay. And then, wherever you are on your mat, maybe you turn sideways like I did. Swing your legs forward so that you can roll down to the mat. Bring your knees mat width apart even. And take a little windshield wiper of your knees from one side to the other. And the next time your knees fall to the left, pause there. This might feel good. Some of you might choose to hook the left ankle over top of the right thigh. You could be passive here, or you might squeeze the right bum. Maybe reach the right arm back to the back right corner. And then unhook the leg if it's hooked and come back to center. And then allow your knees to go over to the right. Again, pause here for a couple breaths, just see how it feels. Maybe you choose to hook the right ankle over top of the left thigh. You could let the bum just tangle, or you might squeeze the bum on that left side. Maybe you reach the left arm to the back left corner. And if the heel is hooked, gently unhook it, come back to center, and then bring your feet hip width apart, parallel, close enough into your bum that you can tickle your heels with your fingertips. I really like robot arms for bridge. Press your feet into the earth. Inhale, lift the spine up and away, and we're just going to move through bridge. So exhale, lower back down. A few more of these on your own time, on your own breath. You might really work the rounding of the spine, or maybe you let the tailbone drop and you get a bit more extension rather than flexion. Whatever works for you. If none of that makes sense, don't worry about it. Just keep coming up and down. The next time that you come back down, Pause there. Take the feet mat width apart. Let the knees hang in toward each other. And then start to draw your knees toward you. A little rock from side to side. And you might interlace your hands over top of your shins. And then maybe you start to curl your nose toward your knees. Maybe you start to press your shins up to the sky so you get lots of rounding, deep flexion through the back. And then slowly come back down. Extend your right arm out to the side. Maybe shift your hips right. And then exhale, lower the knees to the left for a really nice spinal twist. So knees could be stacked. You could bring a block underneath the bottom knee or a pillow or between your knees. You could do a single leg twist or legs crossed. Whatever feels good for you. Sometimes I feel like bringing that left hand on the top of the outer edge of the right thigh feels quite nice. A little bit of traction. You could look along the right arm just to finish off the spiral through your spine. And then slowly inhale. Come back to center, reset your spine or your pelvis. Maybe shift the hips left. And exhale your legs to the right. Again, any variation of twist. Even with twists, it doesn't have to be the same variation from one side to the other, depending on how your body feels, whether you have tension through the sacrum, right, or the SI joint. You can't really have tension in the sacrum because it's a bone, but you can have tension through the joint. Last few breaths here. And then inhale. Slowly return to center. Hug your knees into your chest, little rock from side to side. You can even draw circles here with the legs to massage out the low back. And then last pose, if you wish, if you have a block or a chip foam block or a pillow, you might bring it underneath your sacrum, not under the low back, right under the sacrum or the bum. And then lift the knees up and let them dangle in toward your chest. And this is probably one of the best releases for the low back that you can get. The biggest bang for your buck. With the hips lifted the way they are, it should mean that you don't have to struggle too much to have the knees toward you. You might interlace your hands, or maybe they just flop toward you. Now, if this doesn't feel good, if you don't have those props, don't worry about it. I'll just take happy baby instead, with the knees wide. Hug them toward you, or maybe kick the feet to the sky. Last couple breaths, whether you're in that supported variation of snail pose, or maybe happy baby. Now, those of you who are in snail, you're welcome to stay there for your rest if you wish. Otherwise, start to think about where you would like to go for your rest, whether you're flat on your back, legs bent or straight, or you could rest on your side, or in a seated meditation, wherever you need to be. And so for a few breaths, once you've found your pose of rest, inhale through your nose. Exhale, let it all go. Couple more. Let go of your breath control. Return to your natural breath. Let go of any last muscle gripping or tension in your body. particularly in your face or your jaw. With each exhale, allow your body to melt a bit deeper into the earth. And stay here longer if you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.